Hello, everyone. Welcome to 2022. Thank you so much for joining us here today at Radio NIGP. My name is Bobby Tolston, and today we'll talk about renewal. When you think about renewal and a new year, what are your thoughts? Are you thinking of updating your procurement manual? Are you thinking about getting that certification through NIGP, your CPP? Are you thinking about something personal, maybe joining a health club or changing your eating habits? Whatever you're thinking about changing, I'm sure we'll talk about that today here on the show with some of our guests. So stick around and maybe you can get some new ideas about some things you can improve or renew in 2022. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you back here again real soon. Have an awesome day.
Hello, NIGP colleagues. Welcome to another segment of Radio NIGP. I'm Kevin Yin, and joining me today are Don Buffum and David Nash, and we are the Hot Topics gang. And so it is a new year, and with the new year, it's all about renewal and cleansing, refreshing. So whatever it is that you do to get yourself started for the new year, to start fresh. And for me, I'm always thinking about policy and procedures and or code, whatever that needs to be updated in the office, so that we can be more flexible, we can be more agile to our customer needs. So typically for me, whenever I'm updating policy and procedures, it's usually every couple of years. As soon as that policy, procedures, or code have been updated, I'm already started making updates to my copy of the document, and having it ready for the next time that I need to do this. And so, so that when it's ready, when I'm ready to go back and redo this, it makes it a lot easier to just make the updates rather than trying to remember what stuff or what things I need to change. So some of the questions I might ask myself is, when was the last time that I did a review of all this, right? So I do go through my documents on a regular basis. And another question I might ask myself is this a minor tweak, or is this a major overhaul? Typically, it's not going to be a major overhaul if you're doing it every couple of years. But if the document you're looking at is faded, it's on the NCR paper, you probably need to do a major overhaul. For those who didn't know what NCR is, it's I think it's non-carbon required, right? No carbon required. So that's the carbon paper. And for all you young ones, you won't know what carbon is. That's okay. Look it up. Google it. All right. And then another question that I might ask myself is, before I do this update or refreshing my documents, should I have conversations with my peers so that I'm implementing best practices into the next revision, right? And do I need to speak to my folks and departments to better understand their needs, or what they would like to see change to improve flexibility and agility in their contracting needs? Don, what are your thoughts?
Well, those are great comments. Really, when I think of the new year and renewal, I think about relationships. Both my relationships with my clients, my relationships with the supplier community, my vendors, and my relationships with my staff. Have I built relationships in the past? Do I need to build new relationships? When was the last time I had a check-in meeting with my clients? Hopefully I've had them regularly, but if not, maybe now's the time to schedule it. Um, you know, am I renewing relationships or establishing new ones? I need to determine what it is I need to do. Are there new people that I need to create relationships with? The idea, of course, is to have more communication both ways. Find out what do my vendors see coming up in this coming year. I think this is vital with the situation with the supply chain and everything and COVID. And, what do the vendors see? Are we going to be looking at 6 to 12-month delays in getting stuff, or is the world going to start getting back to normal? What about my clients? What do they need? What do they see coming up in this coming year that we can start preparing for? And like you said, Kevin, what can we change that might help them do their jobs better? But it's all about relationships and building those relationships. And if you don't have them, you don't hear the feedback. You can't share the ideas. So I think I'm really looking forward to looking at those relationships and maybe renewing or establishing them. Dave, what about you?
Well, it's interesting when we think of the new year, it's personal things like maybe take off a few pounds or eat more healthy foods and so on. One of the things I think about is continuous lifelong learning. If we in this profession, things are changing all the time. If we don't keep up, and Kevin made an interesting point about checking with our peers and see what they're doing, benchmarking and all the other stuff we can do. What areas have changed since the last time I took a class? Is there something out? There's a class out there in the Pathways program with NIGP that I might be interested in taking. And of course, we got to check and see if there's money in the budget for that. Am I ready to test for certification? Is that something I have on my personal bucket list that I want to get certified? NIGP has a certification, as does the UPPCC, and you can go into the websites and check what the requirements are and see if you're ready for that. Maybe you might be one class away from sitting for the exam. And while we're looking at that, the personal aspect, those of us that are in management and have folks working for us, we ought to do the same thing with them. We ought to look and see if they're ready to get certified. Is there a class that would help them do their job better? So those are something, if we're in management, we should take a look at too. Don, what else have you got on your mind?
Well, one thing that I think is, vital and really important to all of us is giving back to the community. What can I do to help the procurement community over the next year, 2 years, whatever, whether it's at a local level or the national level? Do I want to teach? Do I want to be a consultant? Maybe just take pictures for the local chapter, plan the snacks for a chapter meeting, something to give back to the community. Do I want to volunteer at the local level, like on a committee or the board? Or do I want to volunteer at the national level on one of the committees or councils or boards? More than anything else, I really feel like I have to look at what my passions are. Everyone should look at their passions, figure out what they really get excited about, and then figure out how that may feed into giving back to the community. I just feel like we've all gotten so much out of the profession. There comes a time when we all need to put back into the profession.
Yeah,
Kevin, what are your thoughts?
Oh, thank you. And I do agree with you, Don, because I think this profession has given all of us so much, and we will never be able to pay back to the people that contribute to our successes, right? And so our best way to do that is really to pay it forward, and that's through our contribution to the profession, to our to the organizations that helped us to be where we are today. And so I'm a huge believer in paying forward, and that's a great way to give back what the profession has given us. And so anything else to add, guys?
No, I think we pretty much hit it.
Awesome. Well, thank you all very much for joining us on this segment of Radio NIGP. Until next time, have a great
Take care.
day. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Well, hello there, and welcome to this interview. My name is Mike Beavis, and it is my honor to be here with Dr. Cliff McHugh. Dr. McHugh is going to be an interesting interview for you all because he's never been a practitioner in public procurement, but he has been an acting city manager. He's been a finance director. He started the first Center for Research in Public Procurement. He's a member of the Global Standards Certification Group and travels around the world certifying organizations for meeting the global standard. He's been involved with NIGP for longer than he'll admit, and let's just say the dates go back into the last century. He's done so many things it's hard to count. I can't even begin to tell you how many books he's written or how many articles he's written. But what's amazing is he's a person who's had 10 years experience, went back to graduate school, got his PhD, and has spent the last third of a century, I hate to say it that way, but it's true now, educating the next generations of public procurement officials and professors. And many of those professors are now heads of their own programs, and many of those public procurement professionals are now running their own shops and owe much of what they know and how they've built their careers to Cliff and to Cliff's expertise. So welcome, Cliff. It's great to have you here.
Why, thank you very much, Michael. And I've always supported anything that can promote our profession, and I'm proud to be here.
Well, and it's great to have you. And what I think is wonderful about having you on this segment is that you have a unique perspective. You've been observing what's been going on in public procurement, but not been totally enmeshed and buried by it like those of us who do it day to day are. I think that in many ways you have a more clear view of what's going on because you see it from a different perspective.
Exactly. And that's what keeps me so excited about the field of public procurement, because every time I look at it as an observer, I get to see different things that I didn't see before, and I've learned from all those things. The first time I touched anything to deal with procurement was way back in the 80s. When I filled out my first PO, and it was the cover was white, and then it was followed by a pink, a yellow, a light blue, and a light green color. And we had to write it all in manually to see where we are today. It's just for observational purposes, amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is amazing what the changes that have happened. I remember those old colored OCR forms, and that when I first got to an organization, the terms and conditions weren't on the copy that went to the department. So they didn't know what their contract said.
Never had a clue.
They had no idea.
None.
Yeah. So on that topic, what's the biggest change you've observed in your 25 plus years of watching the public procurement profession between then when you first started and you saw what was going on, maybe as a finance director, maybe as a professor starting to research it, to now 25, 30 years later?
Well, that's a great question, Michael. What I've seen over the last 3 decades fundamentally is a real shift in not what people outside of procurement see us as, but what we see ourselves as internally. And that shift is, I remember one of the biggest struggles we had way back when was having other people recognize us as professionals, what we do as a profession. And we had these fights, and we all understand this, but it all boiled down to we visualized ourselves as clerks, just simply paper processors. Now, that's part of our job, whether you're a buyer or CPO, that's part of a job, is to push the paper, just like me as a faculty member pushing paper. But what's interesting to see is this awareness that I've seen over the last decade or so of us individually and collectively maturing to the understand that we don't need other people to define us professionally. What we want is within our organizations to be seen more strategic rather than operational. From this operational perspective, that we're no longer operations folks. We're a part of operations, but we're not only operation folks. We're not the inventory people. We're not the warehouse people. We're an asset with an organization that when needed is called upon. Whereas way back then, it was more clerical. You went to see Cliff, who was running the stores, right? You went to see Cliff when you needed a PO fixed, because Cliff really didn't have a lot of oversight responsibilities. Cliff just did his job, and that was to make sure that everybody followed the rules. So I see that major kind of shift over the last decade. And what will be interesting to witness, Michael, is how that's changed or will change post-COVID. And why I bring that up is an interesting thought. And one of the observations I get to see looking up from this level rather than everybody else who's looking from this level while they're doing their job is that we learned real quick how to adapt. But procurement has always learned how to adapt. But we learned how to adapt and get our jobs done in an environment where we weren't allowed to go into the offices. We had to figure things out. And in doing that figuring out, how that might change how we see ourselves, right? Because I always believe that if you don't see yourself as a professional, why would anybody else see yourself as a professional? So how we're going to leverage what we've learned from this major shock to this whole area in the world globally, but more specifically to us as procurement folks, this major shock shifted, changed, adapted, survived, got our job done. And it's amazing. Really nobody's talking about that simple thing. And as an observer, my job is to talk about those things and say, this is phenomenal. You guys, most of you didn't have a technology to do this. You had to procure the technology, get the technology, do the technology, and still open up bids on Tuesday and figure out how to do it. So to me, that's just been simply amazing to observe.
That's great. I pull a couple of things out of those comments. One is, that the misquote of Gandhi all the time is "be the change you want to see," and it was really necessary for the profession to see itself as strategic in order to become strategic, right? If you don't just see yourself in that role, you can't fulfill that role.
That's right.
And then the other thing you mentioned is COVID, and I've seen COVID as a catalyst, right? We had changes on the way, but we are now without offices. We'll never go back, and we are completely paperless. We were targeting that, but we knew it would take 5 to 10 years, and we were able to do it in essentially 3 weeks. So
and that's crazy when you put it in that
big
context.
Change, right? But it motivated the other people who could have hindered the evolution, like legal and folks like that, to help us find the solution rather than be resistant if they could.
And as an observer, Michael, have you witnessed a major change? Are you getting more bid protests? Are you doing more, ethical violations? I mean,
No, if anything, it's become cleaner, I think.
So what, as an observer, as this kind of observer, that's why I'm smiling. Watch that transition. Because when I started, we were filling out POs. And then we made an advancement. It was the IBM Selectra. And then we dropped our POs in and typed on them, right? And now all of a sudden, we're now, as a profession, and I say collectively all of us, at a point where we did this major shift. And there's a term called punctuated equilibrium. And what the argument is all about is that you maintain a state, and then all of a sudden a major event happens, right? A life-changing event, right? Say something like a diagnosis that's really bad, or let's just stick with the topic, COVID. So you got COVID, shifted everything. Now, with punctuated equilibrium, the argument is, and the theory is that, is it a long-term shift where now you've gone from this to this, or is it a movement and then you come back to this, right? So it'll be interesting, because I believe that older folks like myself, I won't speak with anybody else but myself, we are managers, right? And as managers, we need to be able to look over the cubic wall to see if our employees are there working and having trust in them that they are working versus actually validating it by making sure they're working. So, there's a lot of stress going on for a lot of people to give to empower individuals to do their job remotely. And that's going to be another interesting phenomenon over the next year or so to see is how's that transition? Are people going to be forced back into the office, or are the managers going to allow them to function periodically in the office, but primarily at home?
That's a challenge that I think many jurisdictions face, and particularly those who work for a finance director, who are folks who want to see things, whether it's on paper or in person, to know that they're real. It's hard to trust that things are just happening out there. I hear the old finance director in you coming out when you say things like that.
Oh, it's so
But
true. I needed to see my accountants filling out the ledgers, you know?
exactly. And the other piece of that is, and we talked about this in one of our earlier radio NIGPs, is when is the emergency over and what does that create, right? So when COVID ended and now the emergency's over, do you still have the authority to do things electronically? Do you
That's
still
right.
have the ability to function in that new way? We were lucky in that we were already on that journey. We'd already done an RFP for the technology and had it justified through an RFP. We didn't have to use emergency authority to do what we were doing. So it'll be interesting to see how those issues work out over time. And if you have to come back long enough to do it right, do you go back to where you were, or do you go back to where you've been, right?
And that's that theory. That's saying, is it really a change in how we do things, or
Right.
is it a period of time where we had to change something and go back to doing the things we used to do the same way? So do we
That's
learn
great.
from it and grow from it? And I hope we've learned from it and grow from it to better our profession, to better ourselves, regardless of what other people think. At the end of the day, we can't worry about that. What we've got to do is internalize all this stuff as a profession, as those individuals who are sitting there as buyers in a city in Minnesota versus those who are CPOs of major state procurement organizations. They're the same thing. It's all about believing that we can do this, and we just showed we could.
And that leads me to my next question, which is based on your observations, both of current events and over your entire academic and non-academic career, what direction would you like to see the public procurement profession take in the future? What if you ruled the world, right? If you weren't just the observer, but now you're God, right? You get to
Right.
say, this is the direction I want it to be. What would you like to see? What would you like to see the profession do or become in the future?
Now, you understand I'm an academic, so I'm allowed my ivory tower. Cliff, you live
Yeah.
in an ivory tower. And for those listeners out there who know me for decades and decades, I say what I believe and I believe what I say. So I think the paradigm of how we operate has just changed. And no longer can we afford not to be aware of procurement in an organization, since it's so fundamentally important. So I talk to people all the time, and one of the things, anybody on the street, you can go in front of your grocery store and say, do you know what this term is called supply chain issues? And everybody will say, oh, I've heard that. I know what that means, right? So it's on the consciousness of people right now. So how we marginalize, how we take advantage of that. And now, since we're aware, let's now show what we can do and flip the paradigm over where we don't report to finance. Finance reports to us.
There you go.
And
I like that.
And here's my argument in my head. And again, I'm this ivory tower idealist, but the argument in my head is simple, is in order for any budget to occur in local government, right, you're spending money, whether it's on personnel, whether it's on goods and supplies, it doesn't matter, capital assets, whatever it is. So why are the budget people making those decisions and not the procurement people? Because they know markets. When I was a budget analyst, when I first started off as a budget analyst, I didn't do any market research. I didn't know what a place, a swing set in a parks was going to cost. I let the parks folks do that, right? So as I see this paradigm flip over, it's a different way of looking at how we believe ourselves in an organization and where we should fall within that organization. So it's important that if we keep on the trajectory of more of us becoming educated, And I think the younger generation, where they got their bachelor's degrees or their master's degrees, and maybe fortunately or not, but at least a course or two in procurement, or at least something in supply chain in the business school, that as we become more and more consistent with what the other populations in organizations are, that we will tend to rise up. In order for us to rise up, we've got to break this chain of finance owns procurement. And that's the paradigm shift.
And I love that coming from a former finance director who still teaches finance and public administration classes and is watching it and doing it every day. It's wonderfully empowering for our listeners to hear that from somebody as thoughtful and experienced as you are. Thank you.
Yeah, and anybody who's done a P-card audit knows that you've got a triple check, right? The triple check. Yep. There's got to be always a check off by 3 people who handle cash, right? So yep. No 1, 2, or 2 people can getting 3 people to, come together for bad reasons is not highly likely. So the 3 people: budget, finance, and procurement, right? Well, if everybody's under finance, there's no check off. So this has got to be separate. This has got to be separate. And this has got to be separate. Otherwise, it all converts on one person. And that's never a good decision maker, because there's too much power and they don't know budgeting. They don't know finance and procurement. So yeah, I think you'll see this paradigm shift over the next 5 to 10 years.
That's great. Thanks, Cliff. So given that, and given your experience again, because that's what we're doing here, is taking advantage of your experience. What's the most important lesson that you would share, the most important lesson learned from observing the public procurement profession that you would carry to current public procurement professionals? So, like, what's the one piece of advice you would give them if you could only give one piece of advice? If somebody said, unlike your normal where you get a whole hour to talk about a small topic, right? You just get one thing to tell, let's just say a new public procurement professional getting into the industry. What's the one thing you would want them to know, the one lesson that you would want them to carry with them?
Don't lose your passion. And the reason I say that is public sector, and I've always been in public sector. I worked in the private sector way back when I was a bartender and worked in other things like that. But professionally, I was always a public servant, and we serve the public. And as we found out, procurement serves a vital function in buying things for government, like the things that got us through COVID, right? So without the procurement folks there, that would have been a mess. So, but in order to stay the course, in order to feel like you're doing something, you've got to keep that passion. And for those who struggle on the daily things about process stuff and paperwork stuff, understand it's passion, and the passion should be for the public and the public good in general. Whether you make that decision or you don't make that decision, that's not the question. The question is, understand that you're doing it for public service, maintain that always, and keep the passion, because you're not paid well enough not to.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Cliff. It's been great to have you with us. It's amazing to see a person who's as dedicated to service in their whole lives as you've been. Starting out serving people in the bar as a bartender, I didn't even know that about you. Then serving as a public servant, then serving the future by training up the next generations of public servants. It's just great to have you on, and really appreciate the time you spent with us. And thank you again.
Well, listen, have a great day. And it's been a thrill, Michael. And you forgot to mention that you and I have known each other for a great number of years.
We have more than, if we admitted it, people would say we don't look that old, right?
Yes.
Because it's been a long time.
Well, thank you.
Thank you again, Cliff. And to all our listeners out there, thanks for being with us. Take care, and we'll see you later.
Happy New Year, everyone. Glad to see you joining us in 2022 for more chapterific news. As we enter this time of renewal at the start of the new year, many of us may make New Year resolutions to improve our lives. We may make plans to save more money, lose weight. Some of us may try to eat a little better. We might work out some more and do some more exercising. Or there might be other resolutions that we make to make improvements. Just as we do individually, we found the chapter leaders also make New Year's resolutions to improve their chapters. You just might find some inspiration in the ideas they will share today to add to your chapter's New Year resolutions. Now a penny for your thoughts. Join me as we turn the page to see what great accomplishments chapters aspire to complete this year.
Happy New Year, NIGP. This is Beth Dooley from VAGP, and my New Year's resolution for VAGP is to follow our new strategic plan of transforming public procurement into the strategic partner of choice. Happy New Year.
We are working on our programming already, and we are actually going to do in-person and virtual meetings throughout the year. We have 6 meetings, and they will all be done that way, God willing. Some of our initiatives for this year is the one that I mentioned is the hybrid meetings. We're going to work with NIGP and through their Zoom link, and we are going to also be utilizing a video conferencing system at our chapter locations. So wish us luck. Our first meeting is at the end of January. Other initiatives that we will be doing is providing an environment of teamwork between the board, the committees, the committee chairs, and our members. We're going to try to make certain that we announce our programs and provide those programs to our members. I think that one thing that we miss is that we have a lot of programs and we're not marketing them to our own members. So we're going to try to do that a little bit more in the next coming term. We're also going to engage our memberships by doing this. So as we all know, we have it's hard to get our volunteers on board. So that's one of the things that we're going to try to do to initiate more engagement. Our big initiative for scholarship dollars is going to be marketing Amazon Prime, the Smile account, which is available to NIGP chapters because we are all nonprofits. So our initiative is going to start in January to our chapter members, where we're going to give them the link to our NIGP Central Florida account, and hopefully we can convince our own members to start using the Smile account. And if we are lucky, we will also get our participating agencies to use it, because as you guys may know, Amazon Smile account is only 5% of sales. You do absolutely nothing except buy things, which we all do. So it's a win-win. However, 5% of $100 isn't that much. So if we can bump up those sales, it could be a really nice backup to our current programs that we've got in store that our chapter uses. Speaking of programs and scholarship dollars, Reverse Trade Show next year, coming up this year, will be in person. We will still be looking at virtual or hybrid events for the future, but we're uncertain. We'll keep you posted. Other initiatives are advocating our profession. We do a lot of work with colleges and universities in the area, and we'd still like to promote that in our area because we realize we need to replenish our procurement workforce because a lot of people are getting to the retirement age, and we really need to make sure that people know that public procurement is a great career choice. Well, that is quite a few initiatives that I've brought forward. I hope you have enjoyed my time on NIGP Radio, and I look forward to seeing you all in the future. Thank you. Bye.
Hello, my name is LaWanna Robinson Lee, and I am the president of the South Carolina Association of Governmental Purchasing Officials, affectionately known as SCAGPO. My theme for this year is Reclaim in 2022. Our organization, like many others, have experienced a decline in member engagement due to the coronavirus pandemic. My goal is to reclaim the purposes of SCAGPO. In reclaiming those purposes, our regional directors will conduct at least one charitable event, as well as the member outreach event in their region. Our professional development committee will conduct trainings throughout the state and not just in a centralized location. Our reverse trade show committee will conduct at least 2 trade shows, one in Columbia and the other in Charleston. And lastly, we will ensure that the members are fully aware of the happenings in SCAGPO. Our communication will be constant, consistent, and timely. Thank you all, and I look forward to serving you this year.
Hello, my name is Nikki Castro, and I will be the president of the Minnesota chapter starting in January 2022. It seems our virtual world will continue into the new year, and my goal for the Minnesota chapter is to keep engagement continuing as well. We know engagement can decline in a virtual world without in-person presence, but here in Minnesota, rain, snow, or shine, we know how to keep moving forward together. To keep members engaged, we will have a vote on our chapter logo. We will continue to grow our participation incentive program by offering new swag. We will focus on increasing volunteers by creating a volunteer position description and matching volunteer skills with the right tasks. Last but not least, we will be rolling out a scholarship program in 2022 for attendance at the NIGP Annual Forum and the chapter's Fall Conference. We've got a lot of goals for next year, but most importantly, the Minnesota chapter will stay engaged and move forward together.
Hi, my name is Carrie Champlin, and I am the newly appointed president of IPPA. As a procurement professional for the last 20 or so years, I have found that in procurement, you come up against challenges almost on a daily that are new. And a lot of times I don't have the answers to those questions. So one thing about IPPA and NIGP and these other organizations is the amount of networking professionals that are within these organizations that have done something that I may not know about that I can reach out to and kind of consult with and get some answers to the questions that I have. So one of the big things with IPPA is the networking. I enjoy working with some great government professionals, and I really want to keep that focus going, not just within the Treasure Valley. So Idaho, the Treasure Valley is where Boise is. We have a lot of members throughout the state, but most of the members are within the Treasure Valley. And so I really hope that with this new term that I can have the ability to reach out to more members in the state and really have them become involved with IPPA, whether they're on a chair or a committee or just providing really good feedback, networking for our folks when they have questions, when projects come up that they don't really understand, that they can reach out to a fellow government procurement professional and get those answers. So that's my real focus on IPPA going forward, is continuing the networking and really having that great member engagement. So thank you.
Hello, everyone. Bringing you wishes for 2022 from the Southeast Florida chapter. First of all, I'd like to wish our NIGP family a healthy 2022 and best of luck in all that you choose to do in the upcoming year. My hopes for the chapter are for us to increase participation from our members. We are a large chapter, but we struggle with getting everybody to participate in. So that is one of the main things that I would like to for us to work on in the upcoming year. I also want to provide more networking opportunities. We have been apart for so many years, and it's time to reconnect. And that's one of the fun things about being part of a chapter. Also, I'd like to give back to the community. I'd like for us to do more volunteer work so that the community gets to know who procurement is, and also bring about some interaction with the agencies and have them understand how the procurement function is important to everything that they do in each agency. And with that, thank you and Happy New Year.
Hello and Happy New Year. Stephanie and I are pleased to bring you our January 2022 segment of Tech Talk. During the pandemic, many agencies rapidly increased their implementations and or moved their constituent offerings onto virtual platforms. In participating in this month's theme of renewal, agencies will continue to reevaluate customer-facing processes and programs to determine if they are meeting the needs of the constituents. The biggest move for many entities was towards contactless payments. Per a survey done by US Bank, 53% of survey participants said they increased their uses of contactless payments. But there is still room for improvement. Questions that should be asked about your public-facing websites are, how quickly can it react to the needs and changes of users? Is the website mobile or adaptable? And is your organization able to pivot to provide the best service to your users? And let's not forget about keeping all of your functionality ADA compliant and easy to access and use.
Another big topic that's going to continue into 2022 is cybersecurity. With the vast number of interactions occurring in the virtual world, it is imperative that agencies test and respond to potential cybersecurity threats. It may be necessary for procurement professionals to enter into agreements with third-party suppliers that will find vulnerabilities in security protocols and provide updated security training to their staff. Finally, the use of telework and hybrid work environments will continue to challenge everyone from private to public sector employers. With the prevalence of the big quit, agencies are forced to provide flexibility of schedule and location of work for employees. This will lead to the procurement of technology tools that promote and encourage virtual collaboration while still creating a secure environment, increasing technology infrastructure while at times reducing physical infrastructure. Public sector will see more movement of previously on-prem hosted applications to greater use of platform as a service and infrastructure as a service, thus leading to long, complicated procurements to ensure security and stability of the product selected.
Further expounding on the topics we covered is a recent white paper offered through GovTech magazine that provides some highlights of the 2021 and where IT is moving in 2022. It's called IT Modernization, 5 Trends and a Path Forward. As we continue to navigate these unprecedented times, procurement professionals who are proficient in IT procurements will be in higher demand, and we hope our segment will continue to provide tips and tools that will help you to achieve your goals. Thanks, and we hope to see you again for Tech Talk.
So you guys know that I am very serious about P-card, and I do keep up with P-card fraud because I've been an administrator in multiple different capacities, and this is of interest to me. I feel like anytime there's an article in the newspaper about P-card fraud, it hurts everybody, every single P-card program. For anybody who picks up the article and read it. So today we're going to talk about this former Georgia Tech employee who was sentenced to 10 years in prison for P-card thefts. Her name was Michelle Harris. Across 4 years, Michelle stole $170,000 through fraudulent charges, personal charges that she made with the P-card that was entrusted to her. She paid for things like her cell phone bill, car insurance. She paid personal tuition at Georgia State University and tuition for someone else on her card. She actually spent money on car repairs and at Sam's Club. She bought herself a diamond ring, and then she paid for $4,000 in catering for a wedding reception. It's ridiculous. For her deeds, Michelle was sentenced to 10 years in prison, followed by that 10 years probation, and she had to pay restitution to the state. Now, you all will remember that Georgia Tech had a lot of problems with their P-card program. A few months back, I told you about the 3 faculty members who,
they were stealing as well through their P cards and getting the PayPal cash and all of that kind of stuff. So now the question is, this month, dealing with this month's theme of renewal and regeneration, how does a program bounce back when it has this many problems? So you tell me, think about it. How does it bounce back? I say you got to rebuild the whole program again. You start with an audit, and that is so that you can figure out everybody who has a problem with spending and where the breakdowns are occurring, right? Why are they not being reconciled properly, and how are they getting approvals? How does someone steal $170,000? You look at your processes. Did they have a reconciler and an approver? You revisit your policies and procedures, and where you find holes, you fill them, right? Okay, so maybe they didn't. So now you have to have a reconciler. You have to have an approver. So now we actually can find it. We have another 2 sets of eyes on these purchases that will be a stopgap in the case of fraud. Once you've revisited your policies and procedures, you've got to get buy-in from the higher-ups. They're going to be the ones who's going to put teeth in the policy. You make some repercussions and you stick to it. Because when people see other people losing their jobs and going to jail about P-card spends, then they'll know this is something that I do not want to do. Finally, you have to have a comprehensive training program for everyone who is related to your P-card policy or P-card program, excuse me. That means the card holder, that means the person that's pulling together their receipts and their statements, and that's who I'm calling the reconciler. That means the approver and anybody related to the P-card program. And as a P-card administrator, or as someone who works in the office with the P-card administrator, who's supervising the P-card administrator, you've got to have your own spot audits. You cannot rely on auditors to come in from the outside or even internal audit. You, as the administrator, has got to do these audits here and there, everywhere, so that you can put a stop to it. You can stop cards, suspend them until you get the proper paperwork, or take people's cards away. Next month, I am coming back with more P-card program stories. This time, we're going to talk about what happens when we don't say no to our colleagues. And this story happens right here in my backyard of Columbia, South Carolina. Now, as you all know, I collect these stories. You can send them to me. You can check out my Facebook page, send them to me there. I collect these stories because always, it's of interest to me, not only to see what happened, but as a reminder that I might look good in blue, but I will never, ever look good in orange. Thank y'all so much.
Hello, and welcome to Way to Grow, an NIGP mentorship moment. Welcome to 2022. We've made it. We're all hoping that this will be a year of renewal and even greater growth for all of us. And this is the time that mentors and mentees alike take stock of where they are and identify new growth opportunities for the future. And of course, the NIGP Mentorship Committee is no different. I'm fortunate today to be able to welcome a special panel from the NIGP Mentorship Committee, including the committee chair, Marquita Gillespie, and committee vice chair, Shirley Webb. By way of introduction, I think you all know Marquita. She's the current president of NIGP Code and Consulting, and when she was with us here in the trenches for about 30 years, she last served as the CPO for the city of Tucson, Arizona. And Shirley, lucky lady, recently retired from her position as the Deputy Chief Procurement Officer for Higher Education at the Illinois Office for Higher Education. And after serving for 34 years, she's currently working under a short-term contract with the Illinois Department of Innovation and Technology to develop procurement training. So again, Marquita and Shirley, welcome to Way to Grow.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay. Great to be here. We appreciate the invite.
Well, I'm glad you could come. So, as I said at the beginning, we're at the start of a new year, and I know that the Mentorship Committee has made some significant strides over the past couple of years. As we reflect on the new year, I think our audience would be very interested in your response to know about what the Mentorship Committee is looking to accomplish during 2022.
Absolutely. And again, thank you so much for giving us an opportunity to share a little bit about the program. As Keith knows, because he was with us from the beginning, this is really a labor of love for this committee. We know that there was tremendous need and voice in our community about a desire to have a mentorship matching program. So we're just thrilled that we're almost at the end of our first year. And just to do a real quick recap of what we've been doing the past year, back in February, we had our first match and we launched 28 teams. So those teams have been going for about a year. And then in August, right before the Leadership Summit, we launched another 25 teams. So we've got 53 teams that are active, and that's about 110 individuals, mentors and mentees, working together, and it's just been so exciting to see. We've had tremendous favorable feedback, some great learning experiences that we have been working on as a committee to continue to make the program even better. Our focus for 2022 is going to be finalizing our first strategic plan. So now that we've had the program up and running for a little time, we're going to start focusing in on not only the administrative support of the program, but looking at where we can grow, certainly continue to grow the matches, but also grow and see where we can take the program in other areas. So we're super excited about 2022. And I'm just going to put in a plug, Keith, that we still need mentors. We've got a lot of very excited professionals looking at the opportunities to grow professionally and connect with people who are seasoned veterans in our community. And we know there's so many of you out there who would make wonderful mentors. So please consider giving back to your profession in this type of role. And get on the NIGP website and the mentorship page and consider joining us and being a mentor in this program.
Thank you, Marquita. Shirley, what do you have to add to that?
In addition to the things Marquita mentioned, we're also currently in the process of soliciting for a software application that will assist us in future mentor-mentee matching. And we're hoping that we can find something that's going to provide a platform sort of similar to Insight that will allow our mentors and mentees to engage with each other, provide a way to foster ongoing connection opportunities for them, and also to help facilitate training. Another thing that we're looking at right now is ways to connect and engage with colleges and universities and some other entities to find opportunities to connect with and support the next generation of procurement professionals.
Wow, that's great. It's really exciting to be a part of this program, and we're really going to be moving forward in 2022, it looks like. And Marquita and Shirley, I just want to thank you for taking the time to chat with me today on Way to Grow. And just as a reminder that you can find the NIGP Mentorship Program as well as our Mentorship Facebook page at www.nigp.org/events/mentorship. So now this is Keith Glatt speaking, and hoping that you'll join me here soon on Radio NIGP for another segment of Way to Grow, and reminding you that this is Radio NIGP.
When thinking about renewal in a new year, I can't help but think about New Year's resolutions. And I don't know about you, but I gave those up years ago. It seemed like no matter how much I tried or what I told myself that I was going to accomplish in my resolution, it just did not keep that momentum to last all year long. Bless our hearts, it can be tough to stick with those overinflated and sometimes unrealistic goals for an entire year. So if this sounds like you, I would encourage you to shift your perspective. Forget resolutions and really focus on renewal and vision. Just like an effective company has a mission and a vision statement, consider this for yourself and for your entity. Give yourself a roadmap to follow and a flashlight to help shine the light on what you hold as a priority. Make sure those goals of renewal that you set for yourself or your entity are SMART goals. That is, boom, as you see here, they should be specific and measurable and achievable and realistic and timely. That's what SMART stands for. And if that's not something that you are familiar with, I would encourage you to use your handy dandy Google machine and learn more about SMART goals. It is a great way to ensure your success. But moving forward, instead of, like I said, focusing on resolutions that only happen once a year and set you up for failure, let's focus on renewals that can happen every day. Best of luck, friends, and stay focused.